Hello everyone, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful, Rabbit Hole, and King Dio. Following my review of Metroid Dread, I've been thinking a lot about the game, a little bit more in depth than I have previously. I think I needed a little bit more time for like the finer points for this to settle, to really give an idea of what I really thought about it, because looking back, this kind of reminds me of how I felt about No More Heroes 3, in which I didn't quite appreciate the game as much as I should have. And I think a big part of that is, due to the highly replayable nature of Metroid games, it's really, really difficult to discern how much you enjoy them on a first playthrough. Like, in fact, this is probably the first whole completely original 2D Metroid that's come out in my lifetime. 2001 Fusion, I was not a fan then, right? Like, I didn't become a fan until like 2005 when I played Super for the first time, and it took me a decade to get to Fusion, and it took me a while to become a fan of that. Like, if I had played Fusion when it came out, I probably wouldn't have been as big of a fan of it as I was Super, and I think Dread kind of is kind of taking a while to sink in the same way, because I noticed when like I immediately started my hard mode playthrough, I immediately began to appreciate how well made the game was, how engaging, how interesting, and just how well made, just how much stellar quality content went into it. Like, people are uncovering like speedrunning techniques. There's been a lot of discussion about it. And I think one of the things I wanted to talk about, being a novelist, being a writer, being like a storyteller, is just how invested I was in the plot. Surprisingly invested. I think initially I would have said this plot was weaker than Fusion's, and I think like the Fusion does have like surprisingly good like environmental storytelling and stuff like that, and it feels a bit more cohesive. There are a lot more like plot twists and stuff like that. Like the areas will radically change throughout the game in a really interesting way that doesn't really happen in Dread nearly to the same extent. Like, to me, Dread feels like a stellar follow-up to Fusion, right? Like, it feels like a very much a sequel to Fusion from a storytelling perspective. We have a lot of follow-ups to the lore. We have a bit more like we have a bit more of an explanation of like where the story we've seen how the story has progressed from Fusion, essentially similar to how like Other M kind of depicted how the story went after Super. But I think Dread really learned from Other M's mistakes, because it really did not beat around the bush at all. Like, it somehow managed to get across so much more in such a short time frame. Like, you have basically three major story cutscenes in the game. Well, actually, you have several throughout. Most of them are silent, but you have like basically a cutscene in the middle where you get like, you have like the cutscene in the beginning where you encounter like your enemy for the first time, the enemy that you know nothing about. You have like the middle cutscene where you get like a big exposition dump about who the enemy is and what's actually going on, and then you get the ending. Like, you get a really satisfying payoff. And throughout the entire thing, you're sort of wondering how this is all going to resolve. You kind of think that like you're kind of wondering what's going to happen, and honestly, the payoff to this is better than anything I really could have expected. Like, I have a lot of criticisms for Dread, like the pacing and like how the Emmys were utilized and stuff like that. The thing that really took me aback, though, the thing that really impressed me was like just how amazing that final boss and antagonist was. My thing about Dread, and the thing that I think I'm really going to take away from this, is that the character of Ravenbeak, the greatest in the galaxy, a threat so powerful that Samus could never hope to defeat him. Ravenbeak is an incredibly compelling, incredibly interesting villain. Like, legit probably the best we've ever had. Like, people love the concept of an evil warrior race type Chozo from like legit from the moment that the character was teased in Samus Returns. That was like actually the most hyped thing about Samus Returns was people like realizing that this character existed, and that like some shit happened on SR388 in the distant past, and like this character like might have some pivotal place in the lore, and we do get an explanation for that. Like we understand a little bit more about Chozo culture because of this game. Like they have like their scientist tribe, and they have like the Thoba, and they have like the Makin, who are like their warrior tribe. Like people are trying to say that like Nintendo pulled this out of their ass. That like this is the first indication we've had of Chozos being divided into different tribes. That is not true. I think Prime actually goes into a little bit of detail about like the background of the Chozo and stuff like that, and how they typically establish their society, and how like they populated Talon 4 and stuff like that, and how they've like kind of went their separate ways. You have like you had like the people on Talon 4 who sort of like wanted to observe like the natural progression of like nature and stuff like that, live a sort of like primitive lifestyle. Then you have like the scientists on you have like the Zebes people who like raise Samus, and you have like the people on SR388 who designed the Metroids. Like again, we're dealing with a spacefaring people who have like a very complex, multi-layered structure, and of course they're going to be like different depending on where you find them. And the thing about Ravenbeak that makes him really interesting to me is that he actually has motivations. He actually has a personality. He actually has like an established relationship with Samus. He's actually trying to use Samus for his own game, rather than like what Ridley would do, which is typically just destroy her outright. Like Ravenbeak actually has a plan for Samus that sort of unfolds throughout the entire game, and he's sort of outmaneuvered by his compatriot, a Quiet Robe, right? Another Chozo. So he's kind of defeated by these two. Quiet Robe is a really interesting character in and of himself as well, by the way. Especially the way he helps Samus at the end. That was legit badass. That was legit really cool. Like a really good way to sort of use this character, I think. I'll probably get into that in another video, but like Ravenbeak himself is such a fun final boss, such an interesting character, and has such a good like send off. Like I think with a character this cool, I would expect to see them again. But the fact that they introduced one of the best characters ever in Metroid, and then had the balls to instantly kill him off, right, in the most spectacular way possible, it makes Samus look cool as fuck, and that's a major takeaway from Dread as well. I've noticed a lot of commentators like pointing this out. Dread really sells the idea that like Samus is hardcore as fuck. It's always been a meme among the community that like Samus is like the most badass female character in gaming, but Dread, I think, more than any of the others, including Prime 3, which I think previously held the crown, really sells this concept. Because like you see Samus, like how she interacts with like her enemies, how she deals with Kraid, how she deals with these aliens, how she deals with the X, how she deals with like things she doesn't understand. Like more than any other game in the series, especially Other M, like Dread really showcases Samus's true personality as being like an incredibly gifted killer, an incredibly gifted explorer, incredibly capable at doing what she does, and you're not surprised at all that she's able to overpower Ravenbeak in spite of their clear technological difference. I think Ravenbeak has a more advanced suit or something. I'm not sure exactly what the nature of the power suit is. Maybe we'll see like an expansion on that idea like in future games. Because like there's no way like the Chozo designed the fucking Metroid suit, right? Like it just kind of comes out of nowhere. Yeah, Samus gets a Metroid suit at the end. It's badass as fuck. Really, really great. I just found myself like just completely really hyped at this ending. The most hyped I've been at a Metroid ending, I think, since legit Super, right? Like, I would put this up there with Super, like, probably better than Super from a pure gameplay perspective. I think Super has, like, the better, like, overarching plot, I suppose. Because it's entirely silent, and it's just, like, incredibly well paced. Like, Super is never really going to be topped in that regard, but Dread, I think, kind of takes it in a different direction, makes it badass and cool rather than heartbreaking, and it really sells that as well, right? Like, it's good, but in a different way. And like Dread, you really get this impression that like they really went in a different direction with this one. They really took a lot of risks, and I think for the most part, other than maybe like the stealth gameplay with the Emmys, they really paid off. I really enjoyed my time with this game. I thought it was great. I found myself super hyped, super excited for it, and now I think we have our first candidate for Super Smash Bros. 6. Ravenbeak for Super Smash Bros. 6. Make it happen, Sakurai. The fans need to be on this. We need to make our voices heard loud and clear, like Ravenbeak for Smash.